Hi, it's Kwan. Today I'm going to share with you a parenting book that I really like. It's one of the two parenting books that I've used that's really helped to give me advice on raising kids. So I started reading this book or listening to it, the audiobook, when my kid was, my boy, he was, I think, just recently born or one or something like that. And so I found the book, and this book is called Hunt, Gather, Parent by Micheline Duchcliffe, and it's about what ancient cultures can teach us about the lost art of raising happy, helpful little humans. And what this book was, she did some research, and she found she actually did research with the Mayan community in Mexico, and the Inuit community in the Arctic, and Hadzab in Tanzania. And she found that the way that these cultures raise kids is very different than how our Western culture parenting style is. And so one of the key points in there is that it's a collaboration. So number one, it's more of like a holistic approach of how to raise kids, and number one, collaboration. So it's not just like in our culture, I guess, the parents working and it's isolated, so it's two parents raising children. And in these other cultures, it takes a community to raise a kid. So not just the two parents, but there'd be neighbors, family, and friends, and it's the whole community's outside. Kind of, the kids are looking after older kids are looking after little kids, and so it's a safe community, and it reduces the burden on the parents. So that's kind of one of the big things in the traditional societies that happens. And then the other part, the second key point in this book, is that the kids are included in adult activities. So unlike Western cultures where the parents do everything, and then sometimes the children, let's say the children, they don't really do dishes until they're 15 or 16 or whatever it is, and now there's this expectation of them to do the dishes. But if the kids haven't been taught the skill at a young age, how are they supposed to know what to do? And it's like, we assume that because they've seen us do it, that they're just gonna hop in and do it right away, but that's not the way it works. So in the Mayan culture, the kids actually help with the cooking and stuff like that. And so they might get it wrong, but the grandma is pretty patient because she knows that if she teaches the kids these skills at a young age, they're gonna have it. So they're gonna know and anticipate and expect what to do next as they get older and as they are integrated into adult life. So that's kind of the second key point. And the third point is that with parenting, it's a very calm and non-authoritative type of discipline, especially in the Inuit culture. So in the Inuit culture, if an adult raises their voice or yells at a child yells at a child or tries to discipline a child, that kind of shows mental immaturity, because the adult should know better. And in the Inuit community, there's not a lot of yelling and things like that. Everything is calm. Micheline gives an example of a child. I think in this family, the child kind of got upset and threw the coffee in it, or hit something. It threw coffee, it knocked out newspapers and everything like that. But the parents did not even react. The grandparents didn't react. They just assumed, well, look, there's a mess. It's got to get cleaned up. That's it. There's no need to yell or reprimand the child. Just letting the child know that that's not acceptable. We have to clean up, and they don't have the maturity for it. So they're not emotionally intelligent, and it takes time for them to build that. So parents have to be patient with that. So yeah, that's kind of number three. And also part of that number three was they do a lot of nonverbal cues. So instead of yelling, it would just be like you could do a hand gesture or a look or a scowl on the face. And once you start doing that with children, they understand those cues and they know that that's not acceptable or acceptable behavior. And so, yeah, that's kind of the third key point. And then the other key point is that in these communities, they teach through observation and practice. So the kids have to watch at a young age. They're a part of the activity, the adult activity again. So they're watching the cooking, they're watching the cleaning, and so they can see and anticipate what needs to be done. So when their turn, they can try it and model it after it. And I've kind of I do this a lot with my boy, and even when he was a young age, we'd be over at my neighbor's shop and we'd be working on the cars. My boy would get right in there and he would learn to pretend to do things. So he's learning and like tightening screws and things like that. And with kids, you have to teach them. You can't just give them a job that doesn't mean anything, because they'll realize that this is useless. Why am I doing this? So this past weekend, I was giving my boy a job to teach him how to use a hammer, and he was hammering nails in, but then he got bored because it wasn't actually contributing to anything. So then I gave him a drill with a bit, and I told him to put some screws into the building that I'm doing. And I mean, he'll strip the screws or mess it up, but when he put it in, then he felt like he had a purpose, because he was building towards what everybody else was working on, instead of him doing his isolated thing that didn't add value. So that was one thing. And kind of the fifth thing in this book by Hunt Gather Parent is that it's important for parents to encourage empathy and cooperation, and not just setting out rules and guidelines and things like that, but it's just to work together as a team and to cooperate. So it's not based on individual achievement, but there's more emphasis on working together. So, and that's something that we model in our family as well. So when we do things, we do it as a team, or I do dishes with my boy, and he started doing dishes when he was 3 years old. And just washing things that I know he makes a mess, it takes me extra time, but I'm teaching him these skills, so that way when he's ready, he knows what to expect and what we expect of him. And so another thing with the way that these communities, non-Western communities, raise kids is there's a lot less parental anxiety, because we watch these things on TikTok and YouTube or Instagram and see and the reels that are on there are the highlight reels, or what are the best that they show. So we don't really see the other end of it. And so with this type of parenting, you don't have these expectations, these high expectations. It's just being a part of the family, doing simple things, and like the education, the math, that stuff will all come. Right now, they need that connection with us, with parents, and to be able to help with the family and to contribute to the family, to be a useful, functioning little human being inside the family. And so it's kind of like, instead of working towards certain behaviors or controlling their behaviors to get the outcome that we want, it's adopting a more relaxed approach to parenting, and and kind of letting the child, instead of saying, oh well, we have this expectation of our child being able to walk at 10 months, or comparing it with another parent where their children are walking at this age. That's not what it's about. We shouldn't be standing in the front of our children trying to get them to stand up and walk, but as parents, we should be behind them when they are ready to walk, and we're there as a safety net. So if they fall, we're there to catch them and move them all forward, instead of having that handout to say, you need to achieve this. We should let them go at their own pace and achieve what their capability is at. And the seventh key point is talking about physical closeness, connection, and affection. So a lot of these communities, they don't have separate bathrooms or separate bedrooms. The whole family lives in one hut, so everything. And so with this, the parents are co-sleeping with the children, and from this, it provides emotional stability and closeness and emotional development, because I've noticed things with even my boy. He's 5. He's been co-sleeping with us for a while, but he doesn't have a lot of nightmares or night terrors at all. It's maybe twice that he's had a nightmare, but when he wakes up, we're right there for him. So he's not scared, he's not screaming, and so that really helps with his emotional development. And that's what we found that works in our family. I mean, it's that's why this book really resonated with us. And so the 8th point in this book is about reevaluating the modern parenting techniques and norms. And so, you know, you have all these things that are coming out, different things like Montessori and learning about, just different ways of parenting. And so this book really challenges a lot of the norms that there's these expectations. You think your child needs to do this, or somebody else thinks that your child needs to do this. Your parents, it doesn't matter. It's what the parents decide, and what their development level is. That's what we should tailor our parenting towards. And modern parenting can definitely learn a lot from this simpler method, and we find the way that we do this approach, it's not stressful for us at all. So that's like even getting the emotional connectedness, and when our child is frustrated, we can talk about these feelings and things like that. And just to kind of give an example of some of the things that we learned from this book, like contributing and things like that. Our boy, he started learning how to cook his own scrambled eggs at 3.5 years old. So at that stage, he was just cracking the eggs, putting it in, and then mixing it. And then by the time he was 3, I was ready to teach him how to turn on the stove. We have a gas stove. So I was ready to teach him how to turn on the stove, but my wife said, pump the brakes, come on, let's hold up. It's like, well, children in Africa play around with fire at a young age, and they have to learn to follow the men hunting and things like that. So to me, it wasn't a problem. And so I wanted to teach my boy, like, I don't tell him that the fire's hot. I actually have shown him that, hey, feel your hand, move it closer to fire. That's what hot means. So then he has something to gauge, like a metric to gauge it to. And so at 3, he was starting to cook his own eggs. The only thing he didn't do was turn on the stove. So he would mix in the eggs, put in some milk, pour it in the pan, and start doing his own eggs in the morning. So that's kind of something that we've integrated in our family from this book. And after this video, I'll show you, after this talk actually, I'll show you a quick little video of my boy. He's 5 now, cooking his own eggs with cottage cheese and things like that. So we don't really worry about the fire or knives or sharp things around the house, because I've shown him, I guess that's the role of parenting in this book, is to make sure your child is safe, and then you provide them with boundaries so that they can operate in the way that they operate, and kind of keep an eye on it. So yeah, that's the one book I wanted to share with you, and I'll do another book. It's a really great book. I'm not quite done it yet, so I gotta wait until I'm done that before I can talk about that book. So yeah, enjoy this video of my boy cooking eggs. See ya.
Hi guys, I'm making eggs. Extra crack. Good. For ya. I'll get that later. Another tiny little chunk. A big chunk. I can't get the egg yolk. Oh, there's the egg yolk. You know what you do with eggs? You grab the shells. And there's shells in there. Put the anchors. There's cottage cheese, and they're going to get mixed because we don't have milk for it. Cottage cheese, and I just have to mix it. usually take this. I put the stove off every time when I make cakes. Oh, it's cheating. Right, this one's buddy. This on our house. One of my buddies, they love cottage cheese. So that's what I like to do. I like to flip them, flip them, flip them, flip them. Take a flip on my phone. Now we're done, and then the adults put the eggs in.